May I now have the honor of requesting the Honorable Chancellor, GITAM University, and the President of this Congress, Padma Shri Professor K. Ramakrishna Rao Garu, to kindly deliver the presidential address.
Dr. Karan Singh, Sri Raghunath Reddy Garu, Dr. M.V.S. Murthy Garu, Dr. Dashwin Prasad, Sri Chaudhary Garu, Vice Chancellor Subramanian Garu, Dean and the Principal, College of Management, Sri Ramakrishna Garu, all the delegates who come to this Second Asian Philosophy Congress, invitees, GITAM Management Committee members, students. I join our Vice Chancellor to extend to all of you again a warm welcome on behalf of the organizers of the Second Asian Philosophy Congress, on my behalf, and also our university, GITAM University. We are very fortunate to have this morning Dr. Karan Singh to give us the keynote address. He is the philosopher king. This country is blessed to have people like that. Dr. Radhakrishnan, philosopher, who became the president of the country. Dr. Karan Singh has not yet become the president of the country. It has been my dream for a long time. I remember at a function in Delhi when he was referring to my receiving the Padma Shri Award. I said, this is only a beginning. Bigger awards have to come, and I hope I will receive them from him as the president of the country. The day has not come, but I think it will come. People may be wondering why we have the Minister of IT as a very distinguished guest, advisor on IT. I think from the way Sri Raghunath Reddy Garu spoke, I don't know how many of you were able to follow his Telugu. One of the best speeches I ever heard. Thank you, sir. There is philosophy in everything. IT is especially relevant to philosophers now because this is the age of IT. Information technology has changed the very face of the universe, and philosophers, unmindful of those changes, will be philosophers of antiquity. Modern philosophers must deal with information technology. The changes it has brought about in our attitudes, in our interactions, in our behavior, and these we have to take into consideration in our philosophical thoughts. The concept of Asian philosophy is conceived as a mosaic of pluralistic perspectives in Eastern tradition. Such a concept, it is believed, would facilitate communication not only within the Asian philosophical community, but also between Eastern and Western intellectual traditions. We have chosen the topic Philosophers in Pursuit of Peace as the main theme of this Second Asian Philosophy Congress. As all you know, this was to be held during December of 2014 because of the havoc caused by the super cyclone Hudhud in Visakhapatnam, the host city. We had to postpone it by about a year. I am pleased that we have not only recovered from the devastation caused by Hudhud, but we have also an excellent response as indicated by the enhanced interest in and increased participation by the Asian philosophical community. With your continued involvement, cooperation, and participation, I have every hope that the Asian Congress of Philosophy will grow further in strength and stand out as a premier professional organization of philosophers in Asia. I take this opportunity to welcome all of you to Visakhapatnam, the smart city of destiny, as we are fond of calling it, and I hope you all will have a very enjoyable stay. The humankind is longing for peace because the world is in turmoil. homicide and suicide, terror and violence have become frequent news items. Aggression, exploitation, greed, intimidation, cruelty, and viciousness are all in the air as if they are part of our daily lives. Even though we are spared of World War III so far, all reasonable people are troubled by the very thought of it because of its destructive potentialities. Further, war as a phenomenon is conspicuous by its ubiquitous presence in one part of the world or the other. It is frightening that wars are no longer limited to conflicts between states, but perpetuated by non-state actors and pursued by groups operating beyond national boundaries. They are often linked to religions, ethnic, and other identities, which normally are believed to bring people together rather than divide them. Religions are generally known to promote virtues of love and compassion. Instead, we find something very different in some religions. It's no longer an uncommon sight to witness destruction of life and property in the name of religion. There is a general despair on the horizon, as we all can see, and painful and desperate longing for peace in the minds of thoughtful men around the world. Given the current spectacle, is perpetual peace a pleasant dream or a possible idea? Is there any hope for, and are there any possible names of achieving perpetual peace, which is the theme of my talk? Where do we begin? How do we proceed? These are the kinds of questions I hoped to throw some light on in my address. But as you know, we are already quite a bit behind schedule. And therefore, and fortunately, sometimes I take my job too seriously. I worked quite a bit and have my presidential address, which is about 30 pages. Fortunately, it is printed in the proceedings, and the proceedings is available. Therefore, with your permission, I will skip reading even a major part of it because that will consume most of the time. However, I will just give a little synopsis of my thinking about these issues so that it might tempt you to read those 30 pages and get hold of a copy of the Proceedings of the Asian Philosophy Congress. I deal with three people in my talk. First, Immanuel Kant. When I talk of perpetual peace, I don't think any other thinker comes to our mind more than Immanuel Kant. And as a representative from the East, I have also discussed the ideas of my own friend, teacher, and colleague, Professor Sachidanandamurthy, who had written extensively on peace. And finally, I deal with Mahatma Gandhi, his ideas of nonviolence and peace. Bring them together and see if perpetual peace is merely a pipe dream of we philosophers, or is something that can be achieved, and if it can be achieved, how it can be achieved, and how long will it take to achieve. Kant, as we already know, has followed the definition of Aristotle that human beings are rational animals. We are rational, but at the same time we are also animals. The animal, the ego, makes us do all kinds of wrong things. Therefore, we need a state, we need a society to regulate the animal nature in man so that their reason can prevail, and the reason will guide them to do the right things. And therefore, there is need for a state to have rules, regulations, and laws, and force to ensure that people follow these rules, therefore they can live in harmony. So it is the state that maintains peace within the state. However, when it comes to conflicts between states, problems between states, you cannot use that paradigm of using force to bring these states with divergent views together. Only by agreement, by persuasion, by negotiation, and by arbitration only you can bring peace between conflicting states. This is the central point. And in fact, this is the precursor for the League of Nations. Several people said Kant's ideas were the precursor for the League of Nations, and now the United Nations as we have it today. In our tradition, in the Indian tradition, peace has an exalted place. Its pursuit is the goal of life. The world is one family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Therefore, we all wish all people to be blessed with happiness. Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu. Ultimate happiness consists in realization of peace. The world we live in is a place of turbulence surrounded by suffering. Therefore, the goal of human endeavor is to overcome suffering by experiencing authentic peace within oneself. Authentic experience of peace involves self-realization. Self-realization is, again, the authentic self-experience, which consists in apprehending and appreciating the similarity and the identity of oneself with others. This, in turn, generates empathy, altruism, compassion, happiness, and, of course, peace. It is considered a state of bliss, ananda, free from turbulence and filled with tranquility and equanimity. It's all we want. But the difference from the West is that it is within you. It is realization of yourself, which you can see as the same in other people. Seeing yourself in others is a secret, and that begins with you. So peace has its origin in people with themselves. It cannot be imposed. You cannot be by force, either within the state or between states. I think this is the essence of Indian thought. And Mahatma had dealt on this extensively and showed us how it can be done. How we can bring peace when there is conflict without violence. How the human spirit can respond to love and compassion. How any kind of a response to violence is temporary, subdued. The self is immense, is immersed. For the self to emerge, love has to manifest. Compassion has to be shown. Altruism has to be practiced. And this converts itself into the various kinds of practices that Mahatma had told us. Now, I have dealt in my paper with some considerable length what is very relevant today in Gandhiji, and how Mahatma and Kant agreed in a number of things, but yet they differ in vital things. That is, whether you approach peace from outside by force, or whether you can bring peace by your own self-effort. Mahatma's ideas: if you want to have a perpetual peace, the peace must begin within you. It cannot be enforced. As long as you are enforcing peace, it will be temporary, it will never be perpetual, it will never be permanent. And therefore, in my own thinking, that Mahatma's thoughts are for perpetual peace, and perpetual peace is possible, and that is possible only by the transformation of the person by strict discipline. And the basic premise of this is human beings are not simply material beings, simply a bundle of nerves and brain. Besides, there's something more. There's something spiritual about human beings. What Kant called the practical reason. The reason why Kant hoped that there would eventually be perpetual peace, because human beings, in the face of destruction and the cost involved in the wars, their reason will tell us this is not good. The problem is that we all know what is good and what is not good. But unfortunately, We do not do what is good, avoid what is bad. That is the weakness of human nature. Only the spiritual part of human beings can close the gap between belief and behavior. There is this big gap between our beliefs and our behavior. When those come together, human beings become divine. We become saints. Unless that happens, there can be no perpetual peace. The beautiful thing about Mahatma's thinking is that it is possible for us to grow to that level. We can suppress the animal in us, the brute, as Mahatma called it. It is possible to awake the divine in us and live peacefully, happily, seeing ourselves in others, helping others as we help ourselves. Kant had full faith in reason. Gandhi also was committed to reason. But his approach goes beyond reason and embraces spirituality. Gandhi's notion of spirituality is no more mysterious than practical reason in Gandhi. I think the so-called moral imperative in Gandhi, in Kant, is nothing but the spiritual manifesting itself. He never uses that word because philosophers, once we call up spiritual, we become religious. Indian philosophy is discounted in the West for a long time because we are talking about spiritual. But if you ignore the spiritual, you are ignoring the true nature of human nature. And Gandhi's greatest contribution to my mind is to awake philosophers to the reality of the spirit by showing how the spirit manifests in everyday life, how we can awake the spirit and make use of it to bring peace, to make people happy, to make this world really a divine space and not a space where, as we see it, in the last 50 years, I have been traveling around the world. You can see the difference. Every time you travel, you see the difference. The world is going down the drain. There is no alternative. There is no choice. There is no way we can be what we are without paying attention to what Gandhiji has said. Once again, thanks all of you, and I hope your deliberations will be very successful. And now I know you are going to listen to, I think, a thesis, I would say, a thesis on Indian tradition. In quintessence, our chief guest is going to speak to us, and again his speech is printed in full in the proceedings, and I hope all of you will get hold a copy of the proceedings of the Asian Philosophy Congress. Thank you again.
For so eloquently laying down the framework for this Asian Philosophy Congress. In fact, your unique bringing together of Immanuel Kant, Mahatma Gandhi, and Professor Sachidananda Murthy's philosophy represents a synthesis of the best of the Eastern and Western philosophies in the quest for perpetual peace. Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with a deep sense of honor and pride that I present before you a brief but highly inspiring profile of a scholar, statesman, and philanthropist par excellence, our esteemed chief guest, Honorable Dr. Karan Singh Ji, Member of Parliament, Chancellor, Banaras Hindu University, President, Temple of Understanding, and Chairman, Auroville Foundation. Dr. Karan Singh, renowned scholar, statesman, educationist, and environmentalist, is a senior and highly esteemed leader of the Indian National Congress. He has been a Lok Sabha MP from 1967 to 1984 and a Rajya Sabha MP from 1996 to 1999 and from 2000 to date. He has rendered distinguished service as member of several vital parliamentary committees and boards. Born on 9th March 1931, Dr. Singh is the son of the last ruler of the erstwhile princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh Ji. He was educated at Doon School, Dehradun, and completed his Masters in Political Science from Delhi University with a first-class first, creating a university record which is still unbroken. He went on to receive a PhD from Delhi University. In 1949, at the age of 18, Dr. Singh was appointed as the regent of Jammu and Kashmir state on the intervention of Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and served as head of state for the next 18 years as regent, as the elected Sadr-e-Riyasat and the governor of the state from 1965 to 67. He is the only former ruler of a princely state to voluntarily surrender his privy purse and put the entire sum into the Hari Tara Charitable Trust, named after his parents in the service of the people of India. A philanthropist, he converted his Amar Mahal Palace in Jammu into a museum and library of modern Indian art. He is generous patron to a number of trusts which administer over 100 shrines and temples in the state. In 1967, he became the youngest ever member of the Union Cabinet, holding the portfolios of tourism and civil aviation. From 1973 to 77, he served as the Minister for Health and Family Planning. In 1980, he was appointed Union Minister of Education and Culture. He served as Ambassador of India to the USA with cabinet status from 1991 to 1996. A reputed educationist, Dr. Karan Singh Ji has served as Chancellor of Jammu and Kashmir University, Jawaharlal Nehru University, NIIT University, and is currently Chancellor BHU. He has authored over 15 acclaimed books, some of them being Towards a New India, Essays on Hinduism, Humanity at the Crossroads, Prophet of Indian Nationalism, The Transition to a Global Society, Mundaka Upanishad, The Bridge to Immortality, Nehru's Kashmir, and A Treasury of Indian Wisdom, to name only a few. He also has a number of volumes of poetry to his credit. A champion of Indian culture and philosophy, a patron of Indian folk and classical arts and music, he has rendered yeoman service to a number of international and national bodies involved in the preservation and propagation of Indian culture. He has been India's representative on the executive board of the UNESCO since November 2009. He is founder, International Center for Science, Culture and Consciousness, has been President, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, and is Chairman of the Temple of Understanding, a global interfaith organization. From October 2004 onwards, he has been Chairman of Auroville Foundation. Dr. Singh has been honored with numerous international and national recognitions, including doctorates from the Banaras Hindu University, Aligarh Muslim University, and Soka University, Tokyo. He was awarded the National Integration Award for 2005 from the National Commission for Minorities and was honored with the Padma Vibhushan in 2005. Sir, we feel blessed to have a truly great human being like you in our midst, and we are extremely grateful to you for accepting our invitation. May I now request our Honorable President, Dr. MVVS Murthy Garu, to kindly felicitate Dr. Karan Singh Ji.
All humility.
Very nice, yes, it is very good. Nice in color. Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much.
We are truly honored.
It was a great pleasure.
It is our university momentum. Lord Ganesha.
Ganesha will put here.
Sir, please, one, sir.
Just put it here.
Please.
Cool, eh?
I request our esteemed chief guest to kindly release the select proceedings of the 88th session of the Indian Philosophical Congress 2014. I also request the General Secretary of the Indian Philosophical Congress, Professor U.S. Bisht, and the editor of the volume, Professor S. Abdul Sattar, Department of Philosophy, SV University, Tirupati, to join us on the days.
One to everybody. Does this contain our speeches? You printed this in advance, it's not yet over.
The proceedings of the current Asian Philosophy Congress 2016 have also been released by our esteemed chief guest. I also request him to release a book authored by Professor T. Karunakaran, former VC, Gandhigram Rural University, based on Gandhi's holistic vision of education. The book is titled Nai Taaleem Towards a Workable Model. I request Professor Karunakaran to please come on to the dais.
Karunakaran.
Here's the author. Nai Taaleem. Today's conference, Professor K. Ramakrishna Rao, Honorable Minister Sri Raghunatha Reddy, the founder and nurturer of the GITAM University, Dr. MBBS Murthy, distinguished members on the dais, members of the organizing committee, learned philosophers from India, Asia and beyond, faculty, students of GITAM University, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be invited to address the Second Asian Philosophy Congress, which has brought together scholars from a large number of countries to the GITAM University in this historic coastal city of Visakhapatnam. Shri Lakshmi Prasad reminds me that it was exactly on the same day, 19th of January 2005, that I inaugurated the Silver Jubilee celebrations of GITAM University. And I must say, today when I went around the campus, I was profoundly impressed by the campus and also more so by the fact that an attempt has been made here to combine all the various disciplines that are available and give all of them a certain philosophical gloss. Look at all of them from the point of view of the philosophy, particularly of Gandhiji. Let me also mention, I had the privilege of meeting Mahatma Gandhi myself. I must be one of the few people left now who's actually met Mahatma Gandhi. He never used to go anywhere, but when he came to Kashmir in 1947, he came to our house and met my father, Maharaja, and my mother. I insisted on being there, present at that time, although I was on a wheelchair, but I sat through the meeting and I had the privilege of actually meeting the great man in person. And of course, his philosophy, as you say, retains its significance. In fact, its significance is growing as we go through the troubled times in which we live. Let me also add one point. Seeing GITAM University makes it clear what an important role the private sector has to play in our educational system. The fact that a university like this can be set up without an act either of Parliament or of the State Assembly, purely by private initiative, private philanthropy, this I think is a very good sign. Because the concept that only the state has the monopoly of wisdom is entirely wrong. In fact, all over the world, particularly in the developed world, you will see a lot of private initiative has gone into all the great universities around the world. And I sincerely hope that this model of this GITAM University will now become widespread throughout the country. Friends, Asia has been the cradle of all the great religions of the world and had a rich and varied philosophical heritage coming down unbroken for thousands of years. India in particular has been par excellence the nation of multiple religions. 4 of the world's great religions were born here: Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism and Sikhism, while 5 have come to us from West Asia and have flourished here for many centuries: Christianity, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, Islam, and now the latest, the Baha'i faith. While the 3 great East Asian religions, Confucianism, Shintoism and Taoism, have grown and flourished in China and Japan. I am aware that religion is not the same as philosophy, but at least for us in Asia, there has always been a close linkage between the two. We do not look upon philosophy, which in the Greek means love of wisdom, as merely an intellectual exercise, but rather as a quest for wisdom and enlightenment. It is in this context that I venture to place before this distinguished audience a set of 5 sutras, cryptic statements compressing a wealth of meaning based essentially on the Vedantic philosophy, which between them give us a roadmap for addressing the multiple problems that humanity faces today. In my view, a philosophy is really valid only if it helps us here and now to cope with the multiple challenges of life. Otherwise, it becomes merely an academic and archival exercise for students and research scholars. For me, philosophy is a vibrant and dynamic exercise that helps us maximize our inner and outer capabilities during our life on earth. That is why my speech is entitled 5 Sutras, a Philosophy for the Future. The first sutra that I would choose is from the Ishavasya Upanishad. Ishavasyamidam sarvam yat kincha gityam jagat. This whole cosmos, not merely the tiny speck of dust that we call planet Earth, but the billions of galaxies in the unending universe around us, are all illuminated by, inhabited by the same divine power. Whether it is the stately waltz of the galaxy or the frenetic rock and roll of subatomic particles, so powerfully symbolized in Shiva Nataraja, Lord of the cosmic dance, all owe their existence to the same divine force known in the Upanishads as the Brahman. In a way, this represents the philosophical correlate of the unified field theory that scientists are looking for to explain all the multiple phenomena in the cosmos. This gives us a firm foundation to probe deeper into the power that subsumes all that exists, that had existed, and that will exist in the future. The basic concept of the Vedanta is the all-pervasive Brahman. Flowing from this is the second sutra from the Bhagavad Gita, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hriddeshe Tishtati. The divine power resides in the heart of all beings. This is tremendously important, because if the divinity was not seated in our hearts, there would be no way in which we could approach or experience it. While all creatures have potential divinity, it is only with the emergence of the human race that for the first time there is a species on earth which is self-conscious and which can therefore embark on the spiritual quest. Each human being encapsulates a spark of the divine, known as the Atman, and fanning that spark into the blazing fire of spiritual realization is believed to be the true purpose of human life. I would like here to dwell for a while on the crucial importance of joining the Atman and the Brahman. In other words, of raising our consciousness to a radically elevated trans-rational level of awareness. The philosophy and methodology of joining this is what is known as yoga, which comes from the same root as the English word yoke, to join. In our tradition, while there are numerous methodologies to bring about this union, we can recognize 4 main highways of yoga or of union. 1. The first is what is known as the Jnana Yoga, the way of wisdom. This involves clarifying and refining the mind so as to be able to discriminate between what is real and what is illusory. Satasat Viveka. It could perhaps be compared to the way of Plato, who, you will recall, held that all we see are shadows thrown on the wall of a cave in which we are seated. We neither see the objects themselves, far less the light that actually illuminates them. The Jnana Yoga involves the study of scriptures, meditation and introspection so that we develop the capacity to perceive the unchanging reality that lies behind all manifestation. The iconic Adi Shankaracharya and Sri Ramana Maharishi are outstanding representatives of the Jnana Yoga. The second main path of yoga is Bhakti Yoga, the way of devotion. If Jnana Yoga is the way of the mind, Bhakti Yoga is the way of the heart. This involves, in effect, falling in love with a personalized figure of the divine, as did the great Bhakti saints, from the Nayanmars and Alvars in Tamil Nadu to the great Vaishnava devotees Mirabai, Tulsidas, Surdas in Central Asia, India, from Narsi Bhagat in Gujarat to Shankar Deva in Assam, and especially Sri Chaitanya in Bengal and Orissa. True bhakti involves a total surrender in love and devotion to one's chosen deity. In the West, it would be comparable to the great Christian devotees like St. Francis of Assisi, St. Teresa of Avila, St. John on the Cross. In the Sufi tradition, we have Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi and Amir Khusro, whose devotion was directed to their gurus Shams Tabriz and Hazrat Nizamuddin respectively. In India, the Bhakti movement had a tremendous impact in moving from the Devyani, Sanskrit, to the Lokvani, regional languages, thus taking the message of the Upanishads right down to the common person. Because the Jnana Yoga may have been the preserve of a comparatively small group, but when it became Bhakti, it really went into the people, went into the hearts and minds of millions and millions of people. The third path of union with the divine is Karma Yoga, the yoga of action. The key to this is to be found in the second verse of the Ishavasya Upanishad. Kurvan nevihi karmani jijivishet shatam samaha evam toyi nanyate tosti na karma lipyate nare. But it was particularly elaborated by Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. The concept is that if work is undertaken in a spirit of selfless dedication to the divine, it can also be a powerful vehicle for spiritual realization. Living as we are in an era when escaping from the world into a mountain retreat is no longer a viable option. Although I come from the mountain, I am a Himalaya Putra, but even there now you cannot live in peace, as you read in the newspapers every day. Of course, the Himalayas are great. I mean, I must quote what Kalidasa says about the Himalayas in the opening of Kamar Sambhava. Astyuttarasyam dishi devatatma himalayo nam nagadhiraja purvaha paroto yanidhi vagaya stitaha prithibhya ivamanta. That great spiritual presence that is the Himalayas. But we cannot escape into it. And each one of us has necessarily to involve ourselves in outer activities. The concept of Karma Yoga is particularly relevant in this day and age. This was the path chosen by Swami Vivekananda when he set up the Ramakrishna Mission and was followed by many other such organizations. In the West, this would be the way of Martha, the way of good works, the way of Mother Teresa and dedicated Christian missionaries. If Jnana Yoga is the way of the mind, Bhakti Yoga the way of the heart, Karma Yoga the way of the hands, then the fourth yoga is what is known as the Raj Yoga, the royal path. This involves becoming aware of and then arousing the spiritual powers inherent in the human body itself. It is believed that a dynamic force known as the Kundalini, the serpent power, lies curled 3.5 times around the base of the spine. by certain special practices, this power can be aroused so that it travels up the spine, energizing as it does a series of 7 chakras or plexuses, culminating in the 1,000-petaled lotus in the cortex, which catapults us into spiritual illumination. While this yoga is mentioned both in the Upanishads and the Gita, it is in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali that the whole concept is elaborated. What is now known as yoga around the world is Hatha Yoga, physical asanas and postures, which in fact represent only a small portion of the Raj Yoga. Regulation and awareness of our breath, which is the vital link between our body and our consciousness, is the key concept of Raja Yoga. I mean, if you can stand on your head, Shishasana, congratulations. But the capacity to stand on your head is not a condition precedent for self-realization. Sri Aurobindo, in his extensive works, has shed much light on the higher reaches of consciousness that can be achieved through yoga. I have mentioned these 4 paths of yoga simply to highlight the prime importance of joining the Atman and the Brahman in our own lifetime. The Vedanta does not postpone illumination until after death. You will say after death you will go to heaven, after death you will go here. The Vedanta is not involved in what happens after death. Iheva pravalyanti ma. They are interested in what happens right here and now. Rather, it stresses that here and now we should try and achieve the union. I should also add that these 4 yogas are not mutually exclusive. Each of us can and in fact should try and partake to some extent in each one of these paths, concentrating mainly on the one that most appeals to us. So far I have covered the first 2 sutras that I have chosen, the all-pervasive Brahman and the Atman within, and the 4-fold path of yoga to join them. Let me now turn to the third, important and well-known sutra from the Upanishads, which describes the human race as a single family, as was mentioned. When you enter the House of Parliament, you've been a member, you've also been a member. I'm not going to describe what happened inside Parliament. That you see on television yourself. I do not have to comment on that. That will be a separate lecture on Indian political science. But I'm talking of the first entrance, the gate. There's a beautiful shloka. Ayam nija paro veti gananam lagu chetasam udar charita namatu vasudhaiva kutumbakam. This is mine, that is yours, is a small and narrow way of looking at reality. For those of the higher consciousness, udar charita namatu vasudha eva kutumbakam, the world itself is a family. I think it is astounding that our ancient seers had this concept. It is only in our lifetimes that science and technology have actually given us the capacity to break out of the confines of our earth, reach the moon, and explore the planets and stars beyond. They have given us instant communications, the internet, television, and a vast array of technological instruments which have indeed made the world potentially a single unit. However, it is astonishing that thousands of years ago, our seers had realized that in the final analysis, the human race must be looked upon as a single family. The Upanishads describe the human race as Amritasya Putra, children of immortality. Unfortunately, despite these great concepts and the recent technological breakthroughs, our minds are still mired in pre-global conditioning. And this tension is, in fact, the cause of much of the turmoil that we see in the world around us. If we are ever to move towards a global society, and you talk of philosophers in pursuit of peace, what the poet Tennyson called the Parliament of Man, the Federation of the World, we will have to move beyond our limited nationalisms and realize that in the final analysis, we are all inhabitants of a small planet with strictly limited resources that we are rapidly destroying. The NASA photograph of planet Earth, taken from outer space, shows it as it really is, a tiny speck of light and life against the unending vastnesses of outer space, so beautiful and yet so fragile. This is Mother Earth, Bhavani Vasundhara in the Sanskrit, Gaia in the Greek, which has nurtured consciousness up from the slime of the primeval ocean billions of years ago to where we are today. Unless we look upon the race as a human race as a single family, we will surely end up by destroying both the natural and the human environment. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, therefore, has to be the key concept of the emerging global society. The fourth sutra is from the Rig Veda. Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti. It's a very important sutra. The truth is one, the wise call it by many names. If Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is the keynote of the global society, this sutra is the keynote of the interfaith movement, which you will recall began in 1893 with the Parliament of World Religions in Chicago, where Swami Vivekananda, 1893, made such a dramatic impact. The sutra points out that there are many paths to the divine, articulated from time to time, from place to place, by great seers, prophets and avatars. For anyone to assume that there is only one path to the divine, to my mind, is an absurdity. Who are we, creatures on a tiny speck of dust in the universe, to lay down that the illimitable splendor of the divine can appear only in one form, at one place and at one time? This is prima facie unacceptable. There are billions of planets in our own galaxy and billions of galaxies in the infinite universe around us. Anantakoti Brahmanda. How do we know when and where and in what form the divine force has revealed itself? On Earth itself, humanity has had numerous and varied experiences of engaging with the divine, which is why over a dozen great religions flourish in the world today, with hundreds of different sects. While I can strongly hold that for me my path is the best, I have no right to impose this path on other people and to blow up, decapitate, torture and persecute those who do not follow my path. It is deeply disturbing that this fanaticism and hate-filled violence has most unfortunately raised its ugly head again in this century. This was supposed to be the century of peace. What we thought had been firmly left behind since the Middle Ages has now reappeared with greatly enhanced technological capacity, thus in a way confirming Huntington's brilliant but controversial analysis on the clash of civilizations. The interfaith movement, in fact, is dedicated to the principle of the confluence of civilization, to which India also, for thousands of years, has made a major contribution. It seeks to bring together in a harmonious dialogue leaders of different religious persuasions and sects so that they can better seek to understand the essential teachings of each religion. If we leave theological problems such as rebirth aside, there are many issues upon which the various religions of the world hold largely similar views. These include protecting and nurturing the natural environment, helping the poor and the needy, ensuring the dignity and security of women, and so on. Since 1893, numerous international interfaith organizations have come into being, including the Temple of Understanding, which I head. We have held a series of meetings, lectures, seminars, and other programs to spread this program of Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti. I must admit, however, that unlike the environmental movement, which has moved rapidly into the center of human concerns, the interfaith movement still remains peripheral. I suggest that all those of us who are involved in the philosophical arena should pay special attention to this aspect of the contemporary human condition. And I would like to commend what the minister has said about introducing philosophy and integrating it in some way in our educational system. It is true, we are a secular nation. In our constitution, we cannot in public schools teach any particular religion. But surely that does not mean that we cannot teach the fundamental truths involved in all the great religions of the world. I think what we have done is we have thrown the baby out along with the bathwater. Along with the religious teaching, we've thrown out all moral instruction. We've thrown out all deeper aspects. Today, you can go through an educational course in India from pre-kindergarten to post-PhD without once being introduced, for example, to the Upanishads, which are among the greatest texts in world philosophy. Is that not a deprivation that we are inflicting on our younger generation? And then we complain that the younger generations are doing this and they're doing that. If we do not give them any type of instruction, any type of guidance, any type of enlightenment during the educational system, how can we expect them then to become integrated citizens with a holistic worldview? Our young people are very brilliant. Our young people are very dynamic. I travel around the country. I find wherever I go, young people are eager. They have idealism. They have a certain inner strength. But by the time they finish their educational system, with all the corruption and nepotism and all the nonsense that goes on, their idealism has also disappeared by that. So what we have to do, we have to rethink our priorities. And I'm very glad, I hope GITAM University is able to blaze a new path in this and try and see how we can, while remaining within the parameters of the Constitution, how we can introduce some kind of a value-based education into our education system. The final sutra I now come. Let me retrospect quickly. The first sutra was the all-pervasive Brahman, Isha Vasavidam Sarvam. The second was the Atman, within all human beings, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hriddeshe Tishtati. There was the fourfold path of yoga to join them, the Jnana Yoga, the Bhakti Yoga, the Karma Yoga and the Raja Yoga. There was the concept of the human race as a single family, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. There is the concept of the essential unity of all religions, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahu Vadanti. And the fifth and final sutra that I wish to present is Bahujana Sukhaya, Bahujana Hitaya. The welfare of the many, the happiness of the many. There is a general misconception that Vedanta involves only a quest for personal salvation without concern for the larger social welfare. But in fact, the last three sutras, as I have mentioned, are directly concerned with the welfare of humanity. This one in particular is of great importance because it stresses that apart from continuing our inner efforts to join the Atman and the Brahman, it is also important that we should be working for the welfare of society. When Swami Vivekananda founded the Ramakrishna Mission in 1897, he gave them one simple motto, Atmano Mokshartham Jagat Hitaya. Work for your inner salvation, but also for the welfare of the world. There have been many definitions of socialism, ranging from Fabian socialism to Marxism-Leninism. But it seems to me that the 5 words, Bahujana Sukhaya, Bahujana Hitaya cha, beautifully express the basic ideal that every individual everywhere should be happy. In fact, our prayers are very often dedicated to the general welfare. For example, the famous one, Sarvepi Sukhina Santu, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kashchit Dukh Bhagavad. May all beings be happy, may all be without disease, may all perceive auspicious sights, may no one have to undergo suffering. What greater socialism can there be than this? This is the great, expansive, all-inclusive concept that we have inherited from our traditions. And it's not only the Hindu tradition, Buddhism and Jainism and other religions also. The welfare of all human beings is given great importance. While this is obviously a highly idealistic concept, it shows that Vedanta includes special emphasis on improving the lot of every human being on earth. Indeed, the Vedas go one step further and speak of the welfare of animals and trees, rivers and oceans, mountains and forests. Clearly, the ancient rishis were aware that if we destroy the natural environment, sooner or later the human environment will also be destroyed. And this has been brought home sharply to us over the last few years. And the recent environmental agreement in Paris is a last-ditch attempt to reverse the lethal process of global warming that now threatens to overwhelm the planet. Mr. President and friends, taken together these 5 sutras, the unity of all existence, the divinity inherent in each human being, the fourfold path of yoga to join the two, the concept of the human race as a single family, the belief that all religions are ultimately various paths to the same goal, and the commitment to the wider welfare of society and the world represent a holistic philosophy which is urgently needed at the present critical juncture of human history. That is the keynote that I would like to leave with this distinguished gathering on this significant occasion. May the divine force be with you.
I request the audience to please give a standing ovation. Thank you so much, sir. Words cannot describe how blessed we feel to have heard from you all the glory of Indian philosophy based in all its truth and simplicity. Thank you so much, sir. I just wish to inform all the honorable delegates that the next session would resume here after tea. May I now request the Honorable Dean and Principal of GITAM Institute of Management, Professor K. Sivaramakrishna Garu, to propose the vote of thanks.
Most esteemed Chief Guest, Dr. Karan Singh Ji, GITAM is blessed to receive this great scholar and statesman second time. His keynote address, I am sure, shall set the right direction for this event, and it truly fruitful. We have a great source of inspiration in Dr. Singh, who represents the best of Indian culture and philosophy. We are touched by his gracious and warmth in sparing his precious time for us today. Thank you very much, sir. Sri Palle Raghunath Reddy Garu, Honorable Minister, Government of Andhra Pradesh, has honored by accepting our invitation and sparing his precious time for us. His words and his encouragement are treasured greatly by all of us and fill us with renewed vigor to carry forward such a noble initiatives. I am deeply grateful to Sri J. Chaudhary, Advisor, IT, Government of Andhra Pradesh, for being here today. His coming is a sign of his affection for us, and we are enriched by his unique perspectives he has brought out from his IT experience. We are honored by the presence of eminent scholar like Dr. Arlagada Lakshmi Prasad, who has by his presence and his words inspired and enlightened in each of us. It is a blessing and generosity and commitment of our Honorable President and visionary of GITAM, Dr. M.V.S. Murthy Garu, that he has made this event possible. We are deeply obliged to him for his meticulous manner in which he has personally taken care of each and every detail. He is our driving force, our inspiration, and our role model. It's my privilege to heartily thank Professor K. Ramakrishna Rao Garu, Chancellor, GITAM University, and President of this Congress. This Congress is his brainchild, the fruit of his great vision, scholarship, and concern for social welfare. We are indebted to you, sir. I sincerely thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor G. Subramanian Garu, for standing with us as a strong pillar of support and for his wholehearted encouragement at every step. We also thank Andhra University Vice Chancellor for G.S. Raj Garu for their cooperation of organizing as a joint event. May I thank all the heads of the institutions, governing body members, and board of management, and guest delegates, members of the press and media, faculty and students who are present here today for making this event a grand success. I am very thankful to all the members of organizing committee from both Andhra University and GITAM University. I thank especially Professor P. Sheila, Vice Principal, GITAM Institute of Management, and Dr. B. Nalini, Assistant Director, In charge Director for Center for Ghanaian Studies, for their selfless service which has made this event possible. I am grateful to all the staff and the Center of the Ghanaian Studies, campus engineering staff, and all the faculty, supporting staff, research scholars, and students of GITAM Institute of Management for their tremendous hard work and dedication that they have put in for making this event a grand success. Thank you, one and all. May this Congress be a most fruitful one. Thank you very much. So thank you, one and all. And after this event, this inaugural session, we have a next session here. All the plenary sessions will take place in this particular hall. I request all the delegates and the students again assemble here for that particular next session. Thank you one and all.